What can we learn from our Broadway audiences? What do they want to see? What are they telling us? And what can we improve? Let's unpack. Hey friends, if you're new here, my name is Katharine Quinn. I am a 30-something living in New York City and I work on Broadway. Last year I worked on Shucked and How to Dance in Ohio. This year I am working on The Great Gatsby on Broadway. Other shows TBD. As always, the Vlog Fam is the first to find out. And I run a company called And That's Showbiz, which does all things Broadway marketing, social media, and also my biggest passion is connecting digital audiences to our physical Broadway experience. And that's what we do at And That Showbiz. So this is sort of like an extension of that. Also, if you want to follow And That Showbiz, I'll link it down below. And you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. So this is the fourth video in a series that I've done breaking down the results of an Instagram survey that I held at It's Katharine Quinn, give it a follow, of about 500 respondents talking about the Broadway experience. In case you aren't aware, most Broadway shows are not recouping right down. Our audiences are not back post-shutdown. We have 17% fewer audiences than we had pre-pandemic. Our houses are not at capacity. I'm interested in bringing more audiences in. And this demographic I think is really exciting. As I mentioned in other videos, the Broadway League puts out a demographics report every single year. Last year I did a report on it up here, a report on the report. And my takeaways from the report, I have not done that for this year. I'm going to, but first I'm unpacking this audience of 500 people. And I'm so excited because it skews younger. I'll tell you about the demographics, but in general, to me, it feels like indicators for the future of Broadway audiences, and I find that really, really exciting. So the demo of this audience, 500 survey respondents. 11% of these respondents are based in New York City. Everyone else is elsewhere. The main demographic, 35% are 18 to 25-year-olds, followed by 26% are 25 to 35, 20% are 13 to 17-year-olds, and then 35 to 44-year-olds make up 13%. So this definitely skews younger. Broadway League's report is usually like 55 is the average demo, and so this is definitely skewing on the younger side. The demographics are 60% female, 72% of respondents had seen more than 5 Broadway shows in their lifetime. 58% of them follow more than 6 Broadway social media accounts, so these are our theater lovers. And for me, this is an underserved market on Broadway, so I'm really, really interested in knowing what we can do to serve this audience and what it indicates for the future. Let's talk about audience preferences. What do people want on Broadway? These were some super fun takeaways. The first thing that I wanted to know is, do audiences have a preference in terms of the length of the run of a show? So for me, I am grandma. Give me a 7 p.m. start time and a 90-minute show and I'm happy. I would love to be in bed by 10 p.m. and that's the only way that's going to happen. I asked, do you prefer 90-minute shows to 2 acts? 35% actively prefer 90-minute shows. The remainder said length doesn't matter. That's what she said. I'm sorry. I think this is interesting. So the majority is cool with whatever length of show, but a hefty chunk of them do prefer 90 minutes or less. And I feel like that is a trend that we are going to continue to see. I feel that in movies. I feel that in TV shows that I watch. Well, not as much TV shows, definitely movies. I have discussed this in the past, but our appetite for discomfort has diminished significantly post-pandemic. We built she sheds and man caves and beautiful patios and landscaped backyards, and we got really, really comfortable. Our movie theaters, we've got recliner seats and like beautiful cocktails being brought to our seats and blankets and a place for my purse. Like it's heaven going to a movie theater nowadays. It's awesome. And the Broadway showgoing experience is just not kept up. Now, our theaters are 100 years old and they're designated historic landmarks, which means they're very tricky to renovate. However, we're sitting in old, uncomfortable, tiny little seats. Our drinks are like $40. The process getting into the theater can be incredibly stressful. And so I'm just interested in how we can improve that experience. And I feel like we will see a continued trend towards 90-minute shorter shows. I find that sometimes venues don't prefer this because you can sell merch at intermission, you could sell the drinks at intermission, it ups your sales, but I love a 90-minute show. Okay, this is super interesting. What compels you to see a show? I think this is also going to be really interesting to stack against the Broadway League report. The options were story, word of mouth, music, and the actors themselves. Do you want to guess what was number 1? Leave it in the comments. I'll give you a couple seconds. Again, the categories are story, word of mouth, music, the actors. I accidentally just told it to you in the order. So if you guessed that most people said story, you're correct. I kind of would have thought word of mouth, but like there's overlap there. So 31% said story, 28% said word of mouth, 21% said music, and 20% said the actors. Interesting to note that like stunt casting 100% works on Broadway, and I feel that your average tourist is going to value that more highly than these like theater mega lovers. These are the folks who want more original musicals, which we're going to discuss in a second. And so, you know, stunt casting, individual actors were of lesser importance. They're there for the story and word of mouth, which I think is interesting. I'm obsessed with this next statistic. Ready? Whose opinion do you value more heavily? The options are content creators or traditional critics. 83% of the respondents valued content creators over traditional critics. Worth noting that these are my followers. They are following a content creator. However, that is so fascinating to me, and it is so true. Again, I've said this before, I am more likely to value Mickey Joe or Kate Ranking's opinion than Jesse Green's. Full stop. Those are two fabulous content creators versus the New York Times head critic, just for our brains. But I very much feel that way. Another really interesting point after this, when content is marked as ad or sponsored, do you find it less trustworthy? 83% said they found it less trustworthy, with 15% of those saying they do not trust ads at all. I think this is really interesting to me, working in social media marketing on Broadway, in terms of our relationship with influencers, what we're offering our influencers, who is doing a paid partnership, who's being invited to bespoke events, and we're hoping that they create organic content out of that. It's just like an interesting relationship, but I think that is a very valuable statistic, a very notable statistic, and I think we'll leave it there. Is New York City, so this is interesting to me, just because I've heard a lot of rhetoric, and also, frankly, I get a lot of comments here on YouTube of folks saying that they are less likely to visit New York post-pandemic. So I said, is New York City less appealing post-pandemic? 75% said no, but also that's telling it a different way, that 1 in 4 people said yes, which also sort of aligns with the fact that we're missing 17% of our tourists. So it's like, okay, well, I don't know how we fix that problem. Is entering a theater stressful? 26% said yes, which honestly is a smaller percentage than I would have guessed. I would have been a yes. I find entering a theater so stressful, but these people didn't seem bothered. I think these takeaways are super interesting. My favorite takeaways here are in terms of content creators versus traditional critics and ads. I just think trust is everything. I think that is the big takeaway here. Trust is everything, and therefore they're more likely to trust a content creator over a traditional critic, over someone who's doing it like an MFA thesis on the artistic integrity versus a content creator who can break down both the artistic integrity and also who that piece might be for. Critics don't tend to be like, hey, if you're a fan of Phantom of the Opera, you might like The Great Gatsby. It's more like, oh, well, let's not use Gatsby as an example for all kinds of wonderful political reasons, but it's based on their own criteria of like, it literally, if they were writing an MFA thesis on the show or like comparing it to the 1981 production that they saw the original of, that I wasn't alive for, and I don't, whatever, you know what I mean? Versus a content creator, I feel like there's an opportunity for more nuance, honestly, and more varied takes and opinions via content creators. Then the second part of this trust equation is the ads of it all, which to me validates my belief that if you build content creator ads on a base of nothing, you have no foundation upon which to stand or to support content creator ads. So like if you want to invest in that, that needs to happen later in the life cycle of a show. It can't be the first thing out of the gate. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's super interesting. At any rate, those were my big takeaways, but as always, I am not here for a monologue, I'm here for a discussion. So please let me know your takeaways about these audience preferences. I live for the comment section, so please leave your comments down below. Like, comment, and subscribe. It's the surest way to let the YouTube algorithm know what wonderful people to push this video out to. People just like you. As always, thank you so much for watching. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and I'll see you in the comment section. Bye.